Thank you all.
Oh, happy Passover, Gary, and everyone. That was great.
Chag Sameach Kulam. Yes.
So I'm so excited to be here with you all. It took me a while to get to the reading because we kind of went backwards a little bit this week, right?
Yeah, but we always do a different reading during the holidays.
Oh.
During the holidays, we don't follow the order in the holidays.
Yep. On Sukkot, you do special ones.
We do special ones at
Pesach.
each of the Yom Tovim.
Yep.
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 Speaking of special ones, I just want to show you, I'm bringing a touch of levity
Jordan.
tonight.
I saw that.
Somebody actually dropped this off for me during St. Patrick's Day.
Very nice.
Oh my gosh.
There's
That's
also a nip of Bailey's Irish cream in it.
Ooh.
Nice.
I love St. Patrick's Day. I dress from head to toe in green.
So this is kind of like the multicultural Passover with the St. Patrick's Day leprechauns.
Were you at services on the Saturday when I played Donna Lump to Irish Washwoman?
I was there. Oh, I love it. Multicultural. Absolutely.
I just want to know, did Elijah show up?
He never shows up.
No, I don't mean Yahoo.
Hi, Jordan.
Yahoo.
Hi, everybody.
There'll be a special St. Patrick's Day next year
Yeah,
Oh, I hope
that's
so.
right.
because Purim and St. Patrick's Day are the same day.
Oh
We've
my
had that before, Ed.
goodness.
We've
Wow.
had that before.
That's cool.
And
We had
Bunny is,
we had
and
that a couple of years ago, Ed. That it was the same day.
actually, it's really Evacuation Day, as
That's
you
right.
all know.
I know
That's-
that. Yeah,
And it's a public holiday in Boston.
in
because it's
Boston. Yeah.
Evacuation Day.
I used to follow that because remember I grew up in Boston, so I remember that. Yeah.
Well, it used to aggravate me. I dressed in green from head to toe, and I was the only one who could see me because Evacuation Day, everybody had off. Except
I
that
was
politicians in
invited to
Boston
Tip
were all
O'Neill's.
Irish.
I was invited to Tip O'Neill's roast. Do you remember those?
Oh, I
Oh,
love those
yeah.
roasts. They were
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, he invited me one year.
That
Nice.
must have been fun.
Billy Bulger, right? Billy Bulger would be there, right?
Oh,
Billy
did you see
Bulger,
that?
Tip
He was the
O'Neill. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was like
Tip
the
O'Neill was a
MC.
great guy. He was a fabulous guy.
Yeah. Incredible.
It was his brother that was a problem.
Oh yeah.
No,
All right.
yeah, well,
Who would like to start reading? On to bigger and better.
I'll start.
All right, Ruthie. It
We're
starts at
starting at
number
12?
12. Yes, 12.
Okay, here we go.
Before you start,
Okay.
I don't know if everybody has heard, there's now new updated 4 questions for Passover.
Oh.
Question number 1, did you get a vaccine? Question number 2, how did you get the appointment? Question number 3, what shot did you get? And the last 4 of the 4 questions is, and what were your side effects? So I thought you'd like to.
Nice.
Oh.
I got my appointment because I had my grandnephew, Ross, get it for me. I couldn't get through it. He did.
Oh, excellent.
Okay, are we ready to start Torah?
It's
Sure.
a night like no other. Go for it,
All right.
Ruthie.
Okay,
Yes,
here
go
we
for
go.
it.
Moses said to the Eternal, see, you say to me, lead this people forward, but you have not made known to me whom you will send with me further. You have said, I have singled you out by name, and you have indeed gained my favor. Now, if I have truly gained your favor, pray, let me know your ways, that I may know you and continue in your favor. Consider too that this nation is your people. That's very important, folks. Did you hear that? Okay. And God said, I will go in the lead and will lighten your burden. And he replied, unless you go in the lead, do not make us leave this place. For how shall it be known that your people have gained your favor unless you go with us, so that we may be distinguished, your people and I, from every people on the face of the earth? And the Eternal One said to Moses, I will also do this thing that you have asked, for you have truly gained my favor, and I have singled you out by name. He said, oh, let me behold your presence. And God answered, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and I will proclaim before you the name eternal, and the grace that I grant, and the compassion that I show. Continuing, but you cannot see my face, for a human being may not see me and live. And the Eternal said, see, there is a place near me, station yourself on the rock. And as my presence passes by, I will put you in a cleft of the rock and shield you with my hand until I've passed by. Then I will take my hand away and you will see my back, but my face must not be seen. This is very powerful, you know. The Eternal One said to Moses, carve 2 tablets of stone like the first, and I will inscribe upon the tablets the words that were on the first tablets which you shattered. Be ready by morning, and to the morning come up to Mount Sinai and present yourself there to me on the top of the mountain. No one else shall come up with you. No one else shall be seen anywhere on the mountain. Neither shall the flocks and the herds graze at the foot of this mountain. So Moses carved 2 tablets of stone like the first, and early in the morning he went up on Mount Sinai as the Eternal had commanded him, taking the 2 stone tablets with him. The Eternal came down in a cloud and stood with him there, proclaiming the name Eternal. The Eternal One passed before him and proclaimed, the Eternal, a God compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in kindness and faithfulness, extending kindness to the 1000th generation, forgiving iniquity, transgression, and sin, yet not remitting all punishment, but visiting the iniquity of parents upon children and children's children, upon the 3rd and 4th generations. Moses hastened to bow low on the ground in homage and said, if I have gained your favor, O my Lord, pray, let my Lord go into our midst, even though this is a stiff-necked people. Pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us for your own. God said, I hereby make a covenant before all your people. I will work such wonders as have not been wrought on all the earth or in any nation, and all the people who are with you shall see how awesome are the Eternal's deeds, which I shall perform for you. Mark well what I command you this day. I will drive out before you the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, and the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Beware of making a covenant with the inhabitants of the land against which you are advancing, lest they may be a snare in your midst. No, you must tear down their whoops, tear down their altars, smash their pillars, and cut down their sacred posts. For you must not worship any other God, because the eternal, whose name is impassioned, is an impassioned God. You must not make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land, for they will lust after their gods and sacrifice to their gods and invite you, and you will eat of their sacrifices. And when you take wives from among their daughters for your sons, their daughters will lust after their gods and will cause your sons to lust after their gods.
Okay,
You
let's,
shall-
hold on, let's
Okay.
hold on here for a second. You know, we're all correct, you know, we all went back to this section here, you know, during the Passover week.
Right,
And again, you know, we're talking about what Moses did, what God was doing with Moses. Here is the interesting thing. When you read the Haggadah, not a single word says Moses.
Really?
very interesting. That's a good point. That's an excellent point.
Okay, Moses doesn't show up in the Haggadah at all.
Interesting. Gee, that's very interesting. Yeah.
Okay, and the question now is, why would our sages do that?
Because they don't want to make any one human being like God-like.
Oh, okay, they're very close, so that nobody would confuse Moses for a god
Or a Messiah either.
or a Messiah. Well, okay,
Or for a Messiah,
either one
either.
of the two.
Right, right, right.
Even though in the Hebrew, Mashiach comes from
Yeah.
Moshe.
Yeah,
So Moshe Mashiach, but
Right.
you know, we are
it's
not.
very interesting. Yeah, right.
There you go.
I don't
Okay.
think I ever thought about that.
Yeah, well, so that's why we're here, because we're learning all the time.
But
But
you know,
who is mentioned? Oh, go ahead, Myrna.
I have a question though. As Ruthie was reading this, it made God sound a little bit soft-spoken. You know, when he was giving these directions of what he was supposed to do, he didn't sound dogmatic or angry.
Well, he's supposed to be a
Like, no
compassion
emotion.
God. He's supposed to be a compassion God.
No, but
So
this
he-
was like emotionless. What did you think, Michael?
I thought it was compassionate.
I thought it was Ruthie's beautiful, fine way of speaking and reading, and that she really brought out the essence of God.
All right, and one more thing that I think that we need to keep in mind. Up until this particular section here of the Torah, of the book of Exodus, we called ourselves Am, which means people.
Right.
Now we're calling ourselves a nation.
Interesting.
Mm.
That's so good. All these wonderful things you pick out, Michael, are great. They're very good.
And the other thing too is that one of the things that I came across recently was this whole idea of, if you look up at 16, the lust after their gods, and notice how it says their daughters. Their daughters will lust after their gods,
Right.
and will cause.
Yeah, that's the first time I see anything about she in there. I like that too. Yeah.
And one of the things that I think I picked up from the Chabad group is that one of the most vital parts of this was the issue of fertility. And this plays out through all of Genesis. You know how Sarah was barren,
Right.
and then Rachel had to wait, and that was one of the things. Or maybe it was another group, but I know it was a Jewish group. But they said that that's when people went after the god of fertility, whatever that god might have been, and that was one of the biggest. When they say lust after their gods, you could almost sense, if you're waiting for a child, and if you're waiting and waiting, maybe 5 years, 10 years, that would, to me, just be like, oh, we've got to do something, you know? And but
Yeah,
sometimes
Sarah
God
did.
wants us to wait.
Sarah just got Hagar.
That's right. But they didn't go after other gods, right?
No, that's true.
that's so good.
Yeah.
But you know, in that section of 16, when you take wives, etc., they'll lust after their god. That he has a tremendous, obviously, insight into human nature.
Right. Very
He knows
true.
what women can do to men,
Mm.
and men can do to women.
I just want to say something real quick, if I can, that I just noticed.
What-
Because it's something that Annie, I think I was talking about this with you I think yesterday. Right on number 18. Last night, Rabbi said that we're only commanded to eat matzah on the first day of Passover. And I said all along that I know in the Torah it said you shall eat unleavened bread for 7
For
days.
7 days, yeah.
There it is. So I just wanted to throw
All
that
right,
out
so
there.
we have to correct the
Yep.
rabbi, that's all.
No, what we need to do is make sure the rabbi, gets together with us on the Torah Underground. So he'll
That's right. Yeah, that's true.
But somebody
Good.
should write this, the thing is, you're right, in like verse 18, I never
Yeah.
heard that other one. It's always been 7 days and 8 days. And
Yeah,
if you have them left over, it may be 3 weeks.
well,
Gary, do you want to pick it up reading right there? I think we're at 17.
17?
Yeah.
You shall not make molten gods for yourselves. You shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, eating unleavened bread for 7 days, as I have commanded you, at the set time of the month of Abib. For in the month of Abib you went forth from Egypt. Every first issue of the womb is mine. From all your livestock that drop a male is firstling, whether cattle or sheep. But the firstling of an ass you shall redeem with a sheaf. If you do not redeem it, you must break its neck.
Oh,
And you must redeem every male firstborn among your children. None shall appear before me empty-handed. 6 days you shall work, but on the 7th day you shall cease from labor. You shall cease from labor even at plowing time and harvest time. You shall observe the feast of weeks, of the first fruits of the wheat harvest, and the feast of ingathering at the turn of the year. 3 times a year all your males shall appear before the sovereign eternal, the God of Israel. I will drive out nations from your path and enlarge your territory. No one will covet your land when you go up to appear before the eternal your God 3 times a year. You shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with anything leavened, and the sacrifice of the feast of Passover shall not be left lying until morning. The choice first fruits of your soil you shall bring to the house of the eternal your God. You shall not boil a kid in its mother's milk. And the Eternal One said to Moses, write down these commandments, for in accordance with these commandments I make a covenant with you and with Israel. And he was there with the Eternal 40 days and 40 nights. He ate no bread and drank no water. And he wrote down on the tablets the terms of the covenant, the 10 commandments. So Moses came down from Mount Sinai, and as Moses came down from the mountain bearing the 2 tablets of the pact, Moses was not aware that the skin of his face was radiant, since he had spoken with God. Aaron and all the Israelites saw that the skin of Moses' face was radiant, and they shrank from coming near him. But Moses called to them, and Aaron and all the chieftains in the assembly returned to him, and Moses spoke to them. Afterward, all the Israelites came near, and he instructed them concerning all that the Eternal had imparted to him on Mount Sinai. And when Moses had finished speaking with them, he put a veil over his face. Whenever Moses went in before the Eternal to converse, he would leave the veil off until he came out. And when he came out and told the Israelites what he had been commanded, the Israelites would see how radiant the skin of Moses' face was. Moses would then put the veil back over his face until he went in to speak with God.
Excellent. I believe that is it for tonight.
Wow, that's a
Wow.
tell me
fancy.
something. Why did the people think that he had horns?
Oh, because there's another part in the book of Exodus where it said that in addition to his skin being radiant, there were like 2 rays coming out from his face.
And it wasn't in this part?
No, and that was a mistranslation. Rather than being rays, they said horns. So it was a mistranslation from the Hebrew.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you something. When I was, my first job was in 1967, and I was working in a hospital where a woman who was very religious told me, she actually asked me, she says, can I see your horns and your tail? And I said, what are you talking about? Wait a minute, this is a true story. I said, what are you talking about? She says, I was taught in CCD classes that all Jews have horns and tails. So I want you to know it was taught in some of the Catholic schools about that. And I had to educate her that there's no such thing.
Okay, I can understand the horns, but where did they come up with the tail?
I don't know, but she asked me about my horns and tail.
That's
You know, that really is bizarre, though. How could somebody really think that?
Well, somehow or another, she was really indoctrinated. Remember, she grew up in the 50s, remember, and this was the 60s when she was working with me, but she was brought up in the 40s and 50s like I was, and it was very crazy teachings then, because all types of crazy things happened in the 50s. I had a friend who was Jewish, and a priest came over to this little boy. He was only like 8 years old, and told him, you Jews killed Christ. That was a priest who said that to a little boy. So there were lots of crazy things that happened.
Somebody actually told me, you know, Marilla, I like you. She was an older Italian woman, but I really feel sorry for you because you're not going to go to heaven.
So let me tell you a story. I traveled a lot, you know, for 25 years, almost every week. And I had to travel to the deep South quite a bit. And when you go to the deep South, it's kind of interesting. And there were two groups of people I met in the deep South. One group who was very aware of what the Jewish people were because of the Jew stores throughout the deep South, where there was a very major presence of the deep South, Jews in the deep South, and others who were kind of, I'm not going to say ignorant, but unaware. And I had a secretary in a department where I was going to be giving a talk. And she said to me, came over and she said, I've never met somebody who is of the Hebrew faith. And she says, are you Hebrew? And I said, no, I'm Jewish. And she looked at me and she said, oh, and I just kind of burst out laughing. She didn't even know the term Jewish. She was after the word Hebrew. But it's very interesting. I should tell you, if you've read the books around the Deep South and why the Jews were so well known in the Deep South, and as you know, the percentage of men, Jewish men in the Confederate Army was so much higher than that of the Union. You know, it was men, you know, and there's a very famous, very large, I don't know if it's large, but it's a significant cemetery in Richmond, Virginia, of all Jewish soldiers, Jewish Confederate soldiers. And the only picture of a Jew on an American piece of currency was the $2 Confederate bill. And I should show you some of those things sometimes, because I have this collection of what I call Jewish absurdities. But yeah, there are the Deep South. I was the first Jewish person that she had ever seen.
That's not unusual. There's lots of people still in this country, believe it or not, that have never met a Jew.
Yeah, but it's
They think
interesting.
they've never met one.
But the Deep South, people think
Yeah.
that, you know,
Have
it was
any
a
of
bit.
you people had somebody come up to you and ask you why the Jewish people are buried standing up?
Oh, all the time.
All the
My
time,
wife-
yeah.
And I once looked at somebody and said, are you kidding me? It would just collapse all the way down.
Well, you know why? It's because the headstones were so close.
Close together, I know.
Yeah.
Ed, I remember when you introduced grits to Brotherhood.
I introduced grits to Brotherhood.
Yeah.
I used to get grits all the time sent to me. I would give a talk in the Deep South, and I gave a talk in Mississippi. I gave a talk in Mississippi once, and the head of the department, he was very cosmopolitan. He says, "What can I do, Ed, to thank you for this fabulous presentation?" And I said, "Send me some grits." So I went off to my next talk someplace in the Deep South, and my wife calls me and she said, there is a very large FedEx box at the FedEx facility, and would you please, and they asked us to go pick it up. I thought it was something I had ordered the week before. So I said, and it's very expensive. So she goes down to the FedEx office, and it was an expensive. And she puts it in the car, and I said, get it open. Let me show you what I bought. And she opens it up, and it was 25 pounds of grits. But I have a lot of deep South stories.
Either Michael or Gary, can you make me a co-host because I want to show you a picture, if
Okay.
I may?
Absolutely. You are now the host.
Okay, so let me share screen. Let me go here. And I hope that you can see this picture right here.
Yes.
Do you see the horns right there?
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
Can everybody see it?
Is that supposed to be David?
No, this is Moses.
Oh, Moses, I'm sorry. Okay, sorry. Okay.
Right.
got it.
So the the Hebrew word was something like radiant rays or
Right.
something.
And they took it as horns. I get it.
took it
Yeah.
as horns, and so Michelangelo, this is Michelangelo's
Moses.
statue of Moses, and you can see 1 and 2 right there.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to stop share.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
So it looks
Thank
like Charlton Heston might have posed for that, right? Maybe. But well, I know
No, but I'm
it's
just going to say there's a lot of ignorance, only because nobody has informed them or educated them. And I think that's a very important thing. When you hear somebody say something that even might be anti-Semitic, if it's done in a way that's out of naivety, or like I said, they just never didn't know better. It's an opportunity to educate people. That's
Well,
what I think.
Michael, you probably know more than I do. Either in the 70s or in the 80s, something like that. The Vatican came out with a papal, I think it's called a bull, like a bulletin or something like
It was
that.
the second
Vatican Council.
Vatican Council.
Oh, that's the one. And
That's right.
Yeah,
And
that
then
was
they-
the 60s. Yeah.
in the 60s. So
Yeah.
and what they said is,
The Pope John the 23rd.
Yes.
what it was?
Yeah.
Pope John the 23rd. Yeah.
that
Right.
the Jews did not kill Christ. That was the first time they said it.
Yeah, that
So-
was the first. I remember that. I do remember. It was on the news. I remember that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do remember.
know.
that.
1965, wasn't it?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it
yeah.
takes so much.
It was
yeah.
it was very important because I was already in college then, and I remember reading about that. Yeah.
All right, so I forgot whether it was you or somebody else who said that in the 50s, somebody came to them and said, you killed Jesus. Well,
Yeah.
that
So
was-
Christ, right? Yeah.
then officially in the 60s, they came up and said that is not true. So
Right.
you will not hear that again.
So that's the thing. This girl that I worked with in 1967 said to me, I was taught that you had horns, and because she was taught that in the 50s when she
Yeah.
went to CCD classes. Yeah. A lot of people don't know a lot of things about you. I have a girlfriend right now who I'm very friendly with, and she asked me all the questions because she grew up in some rear area of Vermont, and she never met any Jews until she came into the Boston area, and she's fascinated by it. I mean, she's not anti-Semitic or anything. She's just interested because she doesn't know much. That's all. I think it's time for us to sign off now.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
God bless. Everyone have a great
Bye.
Passover.
Take
and
care.
Happy
Bye-bye.
Happy Holy,
Shavua too.
happy Holy Week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Braca. Bye,
Bye,
Dr.
Braca.
Ed.
Bye-bye,
Bye,
Ruthie. Bye,
Ruthie.
Mike.
Bye, Gary
Bye.
Achi.
Achi!
Bye,
Ahavti Achi!
Bye.
Albert says
In
bye
my
to everybody.
sweetheart.
Bye, Albert.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
In a little bit, baby.